under the umbrella of Junior Achievement of the Michigan Great Lakes, which is based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Junior Achievement it's actually a global organization, but we are affiliated with the national organization, which provides support to each of the regional chapters, of which Michigan of the Great Lakes is one of them. So we get a lot of support and a lot of all of our programming and the kits and all of that comes from JAUSA. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we got started and how we got our office started here in the Upper Peninsula. But if you haven't heard of Junior Achievement, our mission is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in a global economy. We do that through educational programs that are provided in schools. As I said, it is a global organization. It's the largest organization dedicated to giving young people knowledge and skills, particularly around owning their own economic success, planning for their futures, their financial futures, their work futures, and then making smart academic and economic choices, particularly smart academic choices while they're obviously in school, and then economic choices once they leave school and become adults and are looking for jobs, employment, and potentially starting their own businesses. Junior Achievement was founded in 1919 nationally and was an after-school program. So that was how it started. And it was a specific program called JA Company, which we still continue to offer to this day. Junior Achievement of the Michigan Great Lakes, that chapter was founded in 1956. And then in 1975 is when programs started being offered in the classroom as opposed to an after-school program. So, for example, when I took this job, I told my parents that I had taken a job with Junior Achievement. I had never heard of Junior Achievement previously, but my parents both had, and my parents grew up in Virginia. So it was interesting that I hadn't heard about it, but they heard about it and they had participated in it in this former sort of iteration. There still are after-school programs, but now they're blended for both in and after. The 3 pillars of Junior Achievement programming focus on work readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. So all of our programs kind of follow one or multiples of these tracks, really working on getting kids ready to enter the workforce and having an idea of like what they might be interested in, making sure that they're prepared, and then also giving them financial literacy skills so that when they're making their own money, they can make smart choices in how they manage it. So Junior Achievement programs align with Common Core national and state standards. They're designed for each grade level, so they're age appropriate. We can shift a little bit, but it's either a grade above or a grade below because they're really focused on the developmental stage of kids at those ages, and also the grade level and what is being taught in those curricula already, so that it matches and complements what teachers are already working on. So within that grade level, then the teachers can also choose a focus area. All the programs are experiential and offer opportunities for engagement. Programs are typically taught by volunteers who come in from their community who have experience or expertise in the particular area that they'll be teaching about, that program is focused on. And so part of that engagement is not just engagement with the content, but also then engagement with an adult from their community, someone who can serve as a mentor, someone who can set an example of maybe what they have done, and really provide a reference point for those kids. So Junior Achievement programs are provided at no cost to the schools. So basically, the school would look through our basically library of programs that we have to offer, and they would, maybe I have a gap in my curriculum, in my program here, or I wish I could do this area better, or this looks really interesting, or I know someone that would be great at teaching this that I could ask to come in and volunteer. And then we provide the materials to them. So they're all, like in the picture there, that's a picture of one of our kits that's all laid out. All of the materials are provided. The volunteer or the teacher who chooses to lead the program goes through a training. We walk them through all of the materials, get them familiar and comfortable with it. We talk about classroom management and the best way to deliver the content, and also to give a little bit of your own story in them. So that's the local support from JA staff. And then all the programs, like the photo there, it's a stock program. They're all developed by JA USA, which is based in Colorado, and they're all evaluated for effectiveness. And all programs in junior achievement are evaluated for what really are the outcomes of this, both short term and long term. Is the program effective, and what does it do for young people? In 2022, Governor Whitner signed a bill that makes a half a credit of financial literacy a requirement for graduating seniors beginning with the class of 2028. So those were high school students, and those were students who entered high school last year in the 23-24 school year. And with that, the state allocated funding to Junior Achievement of the Michigan Great Lakes to expand programming and open an office both in the UP and in Traverse City. So that's a large part of where our office came from, and how I come to be zooming into your meeting in front of you. I had not actually heard of Junior Achievement before. I grew up just outside of Traverse City, and since they're opening an office there, we were opening an office here. It makes sense that I had not heard of it before, but like I said, lots of other, it's interesting pockets to ask people, and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. But it's not, it depends where you grew up and whether it was available in your school or not. So part of the reason that the offices are being opened is that Junior Achievement of the Michigan Great Lakes has responsibility for the UP and Northern Michigan have been part of their service area, and there has been, he still works for Junior Achievement, a guy who's based out of Petoskey, who had done fair amount of work with the UP, and he has worked pretty consistently with schools in Escanaba, and has had programming there consistently for the past couple of years. But without being completely local and based in the UP, it's much harder to get in, and it was just him. Same thing with Traverse City. So those were two areas that have not historically been well served by Junior Achievement, by the Grand Rapids office. So with the idea that if there was local staff, local sponsors, local support, local volunteers, that would be more effective. And so the best way to do that is to open an office and have staff. So this is kind of the Junior Achievement of the Michigan Great Lakes has responsibility for all of those colored counties. And in the UP, there are 40,000 students, K through 12, in the Upper Peninsula. So that's, the students that we're looking to reach. I don't imagine we're not going to hit all 40,000 of them, and probably not all right away, but we can start making strides to get into schools and to be able to provide programming, which is what we've been doing since all the three of us staff here were hired in July of 2024, and that's what we've been working to do is to work with schools. So I am based in Ishpeming, and I have another staff member, Anthony, who is also based in Ishpeming, the Lake Superior Community of Commerce. So LSCP, very, an economic development organization. Junior Achievement is economically focused as well, so it's a good partnership. They have offered us space, and we've been utilizing their space, which is very cost effective and a great space for us to be in. So far, it's been a great relationship being able to be based there. This is our staff, so that's myself on the left. Anthony works with me out of the Ishpeming office, and Nikki McKinney is based in Sault Ste. Marie, and she is our district coordinator. She works remote. We do see her from time to time, but generally she works remotely. Just kind of what we have, all of our would come in and say, I want that JA financial literacy, I want that JA all about cars, and then they would tell us, what grade they're in and the details of their classroom and how that would work. And then we then look for a volunteer, recruit volunteers who have expertise in those areas, and then match them together and then train them, and then they would go into the classrooms. We consider ourselves to be in startup mode, so our funding initially came from the state, and also the Taco Bell Foundation provided $42,000 towards our initial startup here in the UP. The Taco Bell Foundation is, if you visit a Taco Bell restaurant, the register asks you if you would like to round up, I think, for the foundation. And this is, in my experience, this is the first time I've ever seen one of those like roundup things that actually had an immediate direct impact in my community that I've been aware of. But so any Taco Bell restaurant, that's what this goes to. And Taco Bell Foundation is a very large supporter of junior achievement across the country, but money was given specifically from the foundation for the Upper Peninsula. So as we're in startup mode and those funding items were one-time sort of startup, we have been looking to gain financial support so that we can continue. As I said, the programs are offered at no cost to the teachers and the schools. So we work to fundraise basically to cover those costs of being able to do that and make those connections and manage the programs and get the volunteers and all of that. So as we're looking to how do we move forward in 25 and then into 25-26 school year, my goals are to increase junior achievement visibility and awareness in the Upper Peninsula, which is a large part of why I'm here today presenting to you, so that you have an awareness and understand what junior achievement is. I have a goal of raising about $130,000 to work to meet our budget for the upcoming year. And our initial goal is to serve 1,000 UP students in our first year. And we are about three quarters of the way to reaching that goal with students. And I would say actually that a large number of the students that we have already done programming with last semester and are working with this winter and this winter semester are actually, a lot of them are based in the Eastern UP and in Sault Ste. Marie in particular. Nikki has been extremely effective in securing programming in the schools in the Sioux area. And so a lot of those 1,000 are coming from your community specifically right there. You can learn more about junior achievement and junior achievement of the Upper Peninsula. We have a website, and we also have kind of it's more like a hyper-local website. Our main website doesn't have a lot of editing capabilities, and I can't make it super UP. So we have kind of two of them. They work together. A lot of the program information is found on the ja.org site. And I can pass PDF of this presentation as well for those who might be interested in accessing those. And then this is the video. So one of the programs that we had this year, actually last semester, was in the JCAL Public School Academy. And this was run as an after-school program for kindergarten, and this was one of the first programs that we had placed. So back in November, I traveled over to the Sioux for a number of meetings, and we were able to sit in with Jennifer Corbier as she delivered the JA program to kindergartners after school, and we put together a quick little video. So I'm going to share this, and I hope that the sound comes through. I'll start it and then I'll pause it, and we can see if it's coming through okay.
We did our piggy bank, we did our maze. My name is Jennifer Corbier, and
Just want to double check. Can everybody hear that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
and I'm a parapro at JKL in first grade. You know, you're talking to kids about money and how important it is, and needs and wants, and it kind of all goes together with a social studies lesson that the kindergartners, first and second graders all have to learn about anyway. So it just learning. And a lot of them, they might see money not used properly, or, you know, maybe somebody's talked about money problems with them. And so I just think this is a really positive way to show them the positive aspects of it, and we do all need it. I just think the younger you get and you get instill these things in their little brains, then they just remember it and they go with it. And so I think they're interested in it, and they find it fun and entertaining, and with the coloring books and everything that we have at our disposal, where they have, you know, they have all the vocabulary words, and then there's the explanation on the back, and really kid-friendly pictures.
And we put the nickels, but make sure they're in their own groups.
I'm not sure how to get out of that. My last slide was really just a placeholder to talk a little bit more specifically about what we've been doing in the Sioux. So that was from Jennifer Corbier's well, her after-school program with kindergartners last semester. So in JKL, they requested that program last year. And they have requested additional programming to be in place this upcoming semester as well. We have secured a number of, we have actually a lot of volunteers who are interested in participating in junior achievement in the Sioux and in the Eastern UP in general. We have programs placed in other areas across the UP. Also, we just got our first program request, came out of Hancock the other day, up by Houghton. So, but for the purposes of this presentation, I kind of want to focus on that, on your area. So Nikki has been working with the schools there and working with volunteers. And, you know, I guess part of why I'm speaking to you is we've been looking at how to work with Native populations. There are, you know, schools across the UP that have Native kids in them, and we, you know, understanding what some of those additional challenges are for Native kids are similar to challenges that non-Native kids have, but maybe sometimes I think the graduation rate, things like that, and those are all outcomes that are well proven by junior achievement. Junior achievement has well established increased rates of graduation, increased rates of income later in life after graduating. Junior achievement kids who receive junior achievement programming have a higher likelihood of home ownership, and they also have a higher likelihood of, well, they correlate well with the volunteers who come in. Kids who've had junior achievement programming often go into careers that are similar to if they've had mentors who've come in, that they tend to follow that path. So it's proven that having someone come in who can serve as an example and provide some mentorship, that has a profound impact on them when they make choices later in life. So one of the things that we've been looking to do, as we work to get into schools with Native populations, is to ensure that we have volunteers that are Native, so that kids can see themselves reflected back, so that they can identify and understand that those are potential futures for them, and understand how those people got to the positions that they're at, and what that path might look like for them. In particular, we don't have any solid plans yet, but we've met with Stephanie Sprecher from the tribe on a couple of occasions, and are looking at some places that we might partner, and might be able to partner to provide junior achievement programming through, doesn't have to be through a classroom setting specifically. Junior achievement can work with almost any group of students in the same general age range. Junior achievement in general partners with Girl Scouts, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and other groups where kids can have that programming delivered to them. So there are a lot of different options. We're working toward that, and looking forward to what some of those potential partnerships might look like down the road.
Hey, Lindsay, if you don't mind taking a quick pause, we have a board member, Lana Cosley, has a question or comment.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty much at the point where I was going to ask if anyone had any questions. That's the general overview. So yeah, absolutely.
I kind of figured you were wrapping it up there a little bit. And that was going to be my first question, if you had met Stephanie, and you said you have, and had, and then you went on to say that you, it doesn't have to necessarily be a classroom. Well, we have, I'm sure that you're aware, we have plenty of YEA tribal youth councils. I think we have a couple, just particularly in my unit. I know Unit 1 has some, I don't know if Unit 3. Anyway, has it been brought up that you initiate this project within our own YEA groups?
Yes, I think that's what we had been discussing. We haven't nailed down any specifics yet. We've just kind of generally been talking about it.
Yeah, I know that in our area in particular, down in Hessel, Kara and Kelly are two YE workers there. They've been introducing a lot of different things, and I know that they would be, I really think this is really a good program, so that would be my ask, is that if you have conversations with her, that should be instituted right there at the ground roots. So it's really good.
Cool. And I saw Stephanie's on, and I don't know if her microphone went muted and unmuted, so I didn't know if she wanted to chime in on that or not.
Well, so I was just going to chime in and say that, yes, I've met with Lindsay and Nikki a couple times. We actually have a follow-up meeting scheduled here in the next couple weeks. Lana, that was one of the first things I discussed with them, was our YEA programming. And because it doesn't have to be directly in the classrooms, like she said, I did suggest developing, getting this into our after-school program, kind of anywhere, especially for our targeted youth in the high school age range. All ages really, but the high school, especially as we're getting them ready to go into, the adult world and managing their finances. And then another area I talked to Lindsay about really was the trades and the vocational education that they provide as well, and possible partnerships with WIOA, and how we could maybe make that something that we really focus on as well. So yeah, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that, you guys. Anyone else have any questions or comments regarding this program? And it does sound awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on Zoom and presenting to us. And you obviously know Stephanie, so we can work together and try to utilize this program as much as possible. So make wish for everything you do.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for the time. And yeah.
All right. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break, you guys, and then we'll move on to the next item, which is General Welfare Exclusion Program Guidelines. And Ryan is going to be presenting on this. So 5-minute break. Go ahead and make our way back to our seats. We'll go ahead and get started. We're behind schedule, so I'm trying to get us caught up. The item that we're on right now is General Welfare Exclusion Program Guidelines. As mentioned, Ryan is going to present on this. Ryan, whenever you're set up, go right ahead.
Thank you. So we sent out a draft of what's being called right now the Cultural Enhancement Funds Program Policy. And I apologize for my congestion, getting over a cold. This is just a first draft. We wanted to get some input from the board, but I've been working with Bob and Lana on putting some more clear policy and guidelines on how we treat funds that are going to fall potentially under the general welfare exclusion in IRS code. One of the things that, should we get audited, that the IRS would look at is our program guidelines and how we've structured them for any payments we give out to tribal members that we are considering tax exempt. So this is our first run of that new policy that we'd like the board to consider. We have been focusing on this draft with the cultural enhancement funds, the hotel tax funds, but as Bob and I were talking back there are other instances like honorariums for powwows or different cultural events where we do use other fund sources potentially to give out those cash honorariums, which are which do fall under the general welfare exclusion. So one of the things we're going to ask the board today on feedback is if we get consensus to take this first draft and any comments that we might have from the board today and make this a more overarching policy to try to encompass other fund sources and other payouts that we do that would fall under the general welfare exclusion. This first draft is just limited to those hotel tax dollars that you unit directors get to dole out. Anything else you want to add right now?
No, let's see what questions we have and I can address.
Are you asking whether or not we have any questions right now regarding this?
Yeah, I'll pause for a second to see if there's any just general questions. This was first brought to my attention. Legal did a memo, I think in November or October of last year, on our legal opinion on how to pay out certain tribal member individuals who are performing these cultural services for our tribe, like workshops, beading workshops, language workshops, whatever they might be. And then as we did that memo, my understanding was it morphed into an ask from the board of directors to better flesh out some kind of written policy and procedures to how to handle general welfare exclusion funds.
Okay, so we have two hands up, Tyler, then Aaron.
So just reading through this, for qualified individuals, like, is there a way to capture in writing food? Not all of our vendors are going to be qualified individuals. So for instance, we have Culture Night twice a month in Marquette, and everybody does it for free. I pay for food. The tribe pays for food. So, and even when the kitchen is operational, we'll still need to pay for food to cook. So, and those aren't necessarily going to be from tribal vendors or even culturally appropriate. You know what I'm saying? So just to protect that aspect of it.
So we're buying I'm just trying to understand, Tyler, and I apologize, my head is still a little foggy. So we buy all the food, whatever we're cooking up, from maybe a tribal vendor, maybe not. Are we seeking to have that vendor be able to, whatever gross income they get from us buying the food, to be tax exempt, or make sure the tribe is not liable for any taxes?
No, just that we're able to use the cultural enhancement funds for it. Because if this is a policy for cultural enhancement funds, but also, like, I thought it was just the general welfare thing, but it's called Cultural Enhancement Funds Program Policy. So it feels like that might be a restriction or a limitation on the funds now. So let's say last Thursday, I brought Border Grill to the drum group, right? We, on average, get about 45 people there now. Like, it's continuing to grow. And all I'm paying for is food costs. The caretaker of the drum does it for free. People do arts and crafts for free. People still tell stories for free. This is an overall good thing that we do, and food is a huge part of the community, especially since it's done at dinner time. You know, it's not a workshop, it's just a culture night that we're hosting.
Yeah, so right now, in the current draft, that would fall under Section 4, payments that aren't exempt. That would just be a payment that we made for a good or service to put on something that the tribe or the unit director is sponsoring, but it's not specifically like towards the individual that, like we're not paying someone to do like a beading workshop, or we're not giving an honorarium, you said, for the drum, which would be tax exempt. This is just we're buying food for the program. That's still allowable, and it falls under a payment that's, quote, not exempt.
Yeah. I mean, we still provide honorariums, like when we ask them to do special events, but like for practice and to just bring the community together, like that's, you know, people have been pretty free with, you know, sharing with each other. So I just want to make sure that, you know, because like food is probably like the most important binder of that group, which although the group has gotten to the point where it's like mostly potluck now, which is also beneficial to us. But, you know, I want to make sure that beyond that, we can continue to support those types of things. Because, like, I've even used it to help subsidize, like, some elder meals, which I wanted to talk to you guys about at some point. Because some of the elders' meals have programs in my unit have been struggling, and they want to have a picnic or a holiday meal, and they don't have enough funds. So what I'll do is I'll invite the drum and make it a cultural event, and then use cultural enhancement funds to help offset the cost that would cover. But, you know, going into the multi-year funding agreement, I believe that should be covered by health now anyway. So, I mean, and that could be a discussion for a later time. I just want to make sure that we're not restricting ourselves, you know, because it's like if I go to Border Grill, they're clearly not a tribally owned company. You know, I just wanted to make sure that was okay.
So this was, the intent was to capture those scenarios where we are paying someone who is a qualified individual. This would be a vendor. A vendor may or may not be a qualified individual. You could still make those payments to that restaurant, get the food, do your use these cultural funds. It's just, this was just meant to capture those instances where we're paying someone who maybe they're going to do a canoe building workshop or whatever other examples you guys might have. But the tax exempt portion in Section 3, that's meant to cover those individual tribal members that we are paying either reimbursement of costs, or maybe there's a slight honorarium or stipend for them performing that cultural enhancement activity, whether it's a workshop or a class or whatever it may be.
Yeah, because I knew that there was an issue with some employees like being taxed, where like our people that don't work for the Sioux tribe weren't being taxed on the cultural funds, but for some reason employees were being taxed. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, we kind of bounced around on this a little bit. If the IRS has a real difficult time, or I shouldn't say not contractor and an employee, equation. So if you're an employee, then you have to ask yourself a few different tests. Is it part of their job? Is it not part of their job? So it makes a difference in whether or not we do a payroll tax deduction for FICA, or we just issue them a 1099, and then they file their taxes on their own. So that's what kind of started this in my mind anyway, was how do we handle those people that are on both sides? And we only have a handful of them that are. But then with the General Welfare Exclusion Act, it does open us up to where we don't have that regulatory burden, where I don't have to go ahead and report a 1099 or a W-2 to that individual for these type of activities. So as long as we have the program in place, and there's been several tribal consultations in the last few months with Treasury on this, everybody's kind of trying to figure it out a little bit, but it all goes back to if we have a program in place and we deem that these items are definitely cultural, they're not extravagant or lavish, then we can go ahead and utilize the program, the General Welfare Exclusion Act, and not have to go through the tax regulatory aspect of these payments.
Yeah, I know you guys took care of that for the one person we asked to come down, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and the legal department's opinion is in those scenarios, that tribal member, even though they are also an employee, If they're doing it off the clock and they're performing a cultural or religious or educational activity, they do not have to be taxed. They don't have to have automatic withholdings of anything. So this is also an attempt to, as we go forward, to make it more clear instances as well.
And general welfare exemption, but it doesn't sound like there's anything being proposed to limit the cultural enhancement. That is entirely discretionary up to the unit board members for the respective funding. The General Welfare Exemption Act was pushed nationally by the National Congress of American Indians. I got to play a direct role in it, and it was because tribes have the benefit of gaming revenue and wanted to supplement what the federal government is not funding through any sources. But the IRS was interpreting that additional funding was a taxable event. And so we pushed very hard, and Jackie Pata, who was the executive director of NCAI, gets the credit for getting this across the finish line, which allows for tribes to exempt those expenses from the accounting processes and not becoming a taxable event. And so over the years, because this is not new either, we got this passed in, I think, 2015, and so what's that, 10 years now? Again, no names, but a certain board member was always saying, well, it's already passed. We don't have to, we don't have to issue any statements. And it's like, no, life's not really that simple. The land in Romulus is not really in trust. You have to promulgate your policies in order to make this happen. And so this is a long time coming. It'll make it a lot easier for honorariums at powwows or cultural events, because then we don't have to track all of that and then have to do statements to the individual. As far as the other for team members that also get cultural enhancement funds in addition, that are out doing workshops or whatever, the onus is on them to report that as a reportable taxable event. And I'm hoping, because Angeline created this policy, because at one time the drum was not sharing the honorariums with the drummers, and so we all made all of that like a process. And I'm hoping that we're not having team members do these cultural enhancement events and getting paid on the clock for the tribe, and also getting paid because that's double dipping, and that's not allowable. So hopefully that's not happening. If they're doing it on their own time, and they're clearly doing it on their own time, that's something entirely different. So some tribes would like to have per capita qualify under the general welfare exemption, and have pushed that through the National Treasury Tribal Advisory. They have not been successful in that. The chairman of that, by the way, so this is probably going to end up on Facebook tonight, but the chairman of that Treasury Advisory is Ron Allen. Okay, so he's a shaker and mover. He's been on the tribal tax advisory for quite a while. The other thing the general welfare exemption did, and I raised this, and we'll see if this goes anywhere, is the other thing we pushed for was tribal leadership was not eligible to participate in Social Security up until the General Welfare Exemption Act was passed. There's a provision in the General Welfare Exemption Act that does now allow for tribal council members all across the country to participate in Social Security. And I know there was, some animus and hard feelings and stuff while I was not in office to discontinue future board pension, but the thing that's missing still is, as a person who is committing your life to service to the tribe, you were not previously eligible for participating in Social Security. You are now. And the fact that we have not done something, this has been 2 years, 3 years, we should consider, because if a board member is going to get long-term service, you not only now, new board members aren't participating in the pension, you also are not participating in Social Security. So if you spend 20 years on the board, and you get ready to retire, guess what? You don't have any retirement. You don't have a Social Security retirement. We don't participate in 401k. I don't think we're qualified as board members to participate. So, without getting, I know I got immediately attacked on this when I shared it with the board, but I think it's fair for the future board members or even current board members that want to build equity for Social Security. But the General Welfare Exemption Act also allowed for participation in Social Security. So anyway, so I'm excited that we're finally almost there after almost 10 years. But again, it was contravened and frustrated because somebody was advocating we didn't need to do anything. It's already done. All we got to do is not report it. But if we don't report that information without a General Welfare Exemption Act, then the tribe will get audited. So thanks.
Okay, Lana.
It is hot here.
It is hot in here. So,
His head's going to roll.
reading this here, what?
No, because it's so hot here. We're told.
Oh.
We're going to disappoint.
So, a couple things. I'm really happy with our cultural enhancement dollars that we get to use. If we didn't have that pot of money in Unit 2, because we don't get, anything down there unless we actually plan it or initiate it or anything like that. So that money is really important to us, especially even like Tyler said, some of the things that are happening in the community that we kind of have to pick up the slack for. I stand behind every single thing that I sign and approve at my level because I believe in it. I have been confused whether employees had to go through payroll or if they don't, but the rule now is they do. They go through payroll, and that's how they get funded if they're an employee. If they're working on the clock and getting paid, that's the manager and the team member's responsibility. I mean, that's something that they have to work out, and if that's happening, it shouldn't. I'm not aware that it's happening, but hopefully that would be on the manager and the team member. So my only concern about reading this entire thing is now it works pretty well. We go to Lana, we both have to sign, and we give the description of what the dollars are for. We give a brief statement on that, a paragraph. We both of us approve it, have any supporting documents with it, it goes in, and then the vendors get paid. The board of directors is privy to that information because I remember seeing a report on that, and I don't care what the other units are doing. I trust that they're doing it right. So what I don't want to have, if the accounting has any question, what is the process for that? I mean, because this doesn't say all the things that, because he mentioned a couple of things that are unique to what we're doing in our communities. What triggers it to go to legal?
Again, right now, what's triggered where we balance these things around is because accounting is not sure of their footing when it comes to some of the GWE stuff.
Okay.
What we hope to do here is smooth some of those things out, give them direction. In the past, accounting was very nervous about subjecting the tribe to a payroll tax audit. So if anything, they were being very conservative in their approach, and they would run things, or they were going to run things past legal to make sure that we weren't doing that. Now, as we kind of develop the GWE process a little bit more, I think that gives us some more flexibility as long as we define the program and go ahead and identify where we kind of have identified most of the situations where these things pop up, all right? So we know what we're looking for. So I think what they would be looking for at that point is probably the exception and, not the rule. And I can't think of anything that would come up right now to say that they would have to run up and check with legal. I don't, based on what we know today. If we want to utilize the GWE and it removes our regulatory requirement to report these or withhold payroll taxes, I think we should pursue it and make sure we do.
Going off on that, I guess the only example I can think of right now that might trigger a review by accounting and legal is maybe Unit 3 had someone perform a beading workshop and they got paid $1,500. But then Unit 4 did it, same type of workshop, same type of materials, same type of, 3-hour session, whatever it is, and they got paid $5,500. It might flag something, oh, is this Unit 4 payment, not picking on Unit 4, is this unit payment maybe lavish or extravagant? Because we have very similar payments that are this much. So, and that, that's a government decision on what we would consider lavish and extravagant. But stuff like that might trigger just another review. Like, is this going to fall under the exception?
To be honest, it's Ryan hinted at it. What would likely trigger it is when someone on Bob's staff is just getting pressure from somewhere and is just looking to run it up a flagpole. So one of his staff is getting pressured, saying, no, you're wrong, and they're looking for that second opinion. The reality is that tends to be how those things kind of go up the line. Fair, Bob?
That's fair.
And I completely get it. I personally have never spoken to anybody other than Lana once it goes through, once it goes through, it just does. So what I don't want to happen is us stopping up the process, because it's pretty flawless right now. And again, I stand behind everything that we do in our community. It's not lavish, it's not extravagant. It's to enhance culture and education. But I just don't want someone nitpicking what cultural and education enhancement is in our community, such as, Tyler's buying pizza. Do I agree with that? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, because I have done that. So
sometimes, on last minute, it's like, what do you do?
Exactly.
You gotta feed the people.
Exactly. It's enhancement. It's enhancing. That's impressive. There's 45 people going to that weekly.
I gotta get more chairs.
Yeah. So anyway, I just don't, it's something good that's working, and I don't want to bog it down with, and I'll agree to the policy, I just hope it works. I have two questions on Section 3, Number 3, the payments cannot discriminate in favor of the Board of Directors. What's that mean?
Go ahead.
So that's pulled from, that's just straight language from the IRS section that has general welfare exclusion. It's not really very clearly defined in the IRS statute. We threw it in here just to kind of, for lack of a better term right now, just to cover ourselves. So if you're doing a payment that is maybe for your brother or sister, and it looks like it could flag with IRS, and they want to look at our documents, make sure it was very clean. This wasn't to Lana Causey. This was to, her sibling or her cousin or whatever it is, and they were doing, and they're, make sure we have a very clear separation on paper. But that's really just something that I put in there just to pull from the IRS language. So on paper and in our policies, and same thing if we had codified this, just so we are using the same language and the same requirements that the IRS would on audit. I don't foresee, based on what I know of the program and how all you unit directors have spent these funds and talking with Lana, I don't anticipate any issues now or in the future. It was just a cover ourselves language.
I understand. So, one, we're not doing this because it's being abused, right? Okay, correct. So we'll get that clear right now. Second, it sounds like there's nothing that's going to be different on the unit director's end. We still go through Lana, other than if accounting has a question whether it meets criteria, they can get in legal, and legal can give their input.
Yeah, and I tried to do this draft and any subsequent drafts so we could just integrate it right into our current system that you're already talking about, Lana. That's why I was working with Lana to make sure that if we put a policy in place, that it just seamlessly interacts with kind of the policy or procedure we already have in place. Yeah.
Right, okay. And then the other one that, I had one other question, but yeah, I guess I don't have an issue with any of that as long as it's the same and it is flawless and it goes quick, because like Tyler said, in our area too, if we have something, and I don't have an issue with it running by legal, I don't want someone deciding in my community what is enhancement, though. We work and live in those communities, so, it's on us. It's there in a report somewhere for somebody to see, so we own it if it's not cultural or educational. So I just don't want someone picking and choosing for me.
Yeah, and that I wouldn't want that either.
No
that's not my intent.
Right,
We're
okay.
trying to draft
All
it.
right.
It really stemmed from the payroll issue, and then it kind of morphed into. I know in the past our tribe has tried to codify this
Yep.
in various ways.
Just to help you out on that, Ryan, not to interrupt you, but to help you out on that, is sometimes they would say it has to go through payroll. Sometimes they would say the Cooks and Hessel, when they do something off the clock for us, it goes through payroll. And they always tease me and say, am I getting it in a check this time, or am I getting it in payroll? I said, I don't know, whatever the tribe's doing this week. So,
and the default now under the current language is to not do payroll. You get a check.
Right.
Everyone gets a check, whether you're an employee or not.
so we're going to change it, because right now it goes through payroll.
We've been doing it
I think we've.
since December, maybe late November.
In November, I asked for hand cut checks for
Yes,
everybody.
I did,
Okay.
I just write general welfare exclusion right on the DV until we get this in place.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we've been working internally to help clean that up, but we want to get it actually in policy, approved by the board. But the default would be, or the practice going forward, if we do this policy, it wouldn't be through payroll. Everyone would just get their check or cash honorarium if it's a cash honorarium.
Right, okay, all right, thank you.
I also think, Lana, and I think the case you're thinking of, we have switched back and forth a couple different times. We've had a couple of employees that at one point in time were not an employee, and then they would just get their check. And there was another time where they were an employee. Now all of a sudden we open ourselves up to payroll tax issues. So that's kind of where the things was bouncing back and forth on, depending on what their status is. Like I said, we really don't want to go through a payroll tax audit. I've been through a few, and they're worse than the financial audit we go through every year. But I think this will clean it up, and I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Okay, Rob, then Aaron?
So I agree that if this is what a process we're going to continue, that we need to make it seamless and efficient. However, I actually don't agree with having a cultural enhancement fund whatsoever. I think it's far too much discretion in the board members' hands. And if you look at who received cultural enhancement for multiple years before the last couple of elections, you'll notice that almost all of them, or a great majority of them, are very political people who openly attacked candidates, who've supported specific board members who signed off on that. I think that it's a way to use it as a slush fund for campaigning. I don't think it's okay for any of us to have that kind of authority. And to be honest, I question the legality of it. As you all know, this board needs to be an open meeting and give notice to the members to have any binding action. And discretionary. We have an education department and we have a cultural department. So if you think those services are needed in your area, you should advocate for them to be placed in the plan of our education department or our culture department. With as much money as we get from hotel tax, we could hire someone to manage those workshops that you guys want in your area. So I would honestly question the legality of board members utilizing funds outside of an open meeting. I think it's something we need to take a serious look at because I just heard that it wasn't being abused. But if you look at the Facebook, political Facebook posts of the people who receive those funds, I would make a strong argument that it is absolutely abused.
Okay, Aaron?
So, leave it to Rob to get us mired. I would say we're here to talk about the general welfare exemption and knowing, I mean, the enhancement, if so that we don't have to do a bunch of accounting related to it. All right, so having said that, I think that we could probably do a scan of the different types of activities we have funded and just create rough categories of the types of things that under our policy we do qualify for the general welfare exemption. The federal government is not all that interested in telling us what should qualify and not qualify, but they do want us to define what qualifies. So that should be in a policy. So having said that, I do have some concerns about the Cultural Enhancement Fund because I don't think we should be funding anybody that's been charged and investigated and indicted for molesting children. That should not be happening. We also shouldn't be funding current team members or former team members who've been fired for stealing from the tribe by doing these cultural activities on the clock or reporting their hours and being fired for not actually working those hours. So I mean, everybody knows we're a small tribe. I won't mention any names or hint in any direction, but the team members that do their job diligently know that these people that got fired for theft are getting cultural enhancement funds on top of their regular job. So it is important for us to make sure that they're not double dipping. The supervisor in our policy has discretion for moonlighting, so I hope that that policy is still being followed, because if a supervisor finds it's a conflict of interest for a team member to be moonlighting and getting supplemental funds outside of their job, that should not be allowable. And then finally, the reason why this was created, so I was really iffy about this in the first place, because board members were not satisfied with that YEA was doing a good enough job for cultural programming. And they complained about it. Some units were better than others with it. We do have a really good YEA coordinator right now, who was one of those that did a good job in their own area separately. But we created the Cultural Enhancement Fund in order to allow for additional cultural programming because we weren't doing it. On the other hand, it should never be, because we do have a volunteer process. It feels to me like at some level, we created a loophole for somebody who would not be permitted through our YEA program to be able to provide these cultural services through our tribe officially, to still be able to provide those services because the background checks aren't required, the volunteer form doesn't have to be done, and you potentially put children at risk. And I'm not talking about just like a rumor, but if somebody's been charged and indicted by the U.S. government for molesting children, it sends a horrible picture to our community when we give them access to our children at these cultural events. And some of you may not know about all of that, so you should check with legal to see, but I don't think those cultural enhancement funds should be able to be used for that. So.
I'd like to object to that. If we want to change it, let's change it through policy. I don't know that.
Okay, I'll bring a resolution.
Please do.
Thank you.
Okay, Tyler, then Kim.
So to Rob's point, our culture, language and culture has been subsidized by Unit 5 cultural funds. So they hired our West End culture coordinator, but there isn't a large enough budget. So I know that both Larry and Kim and myself, Unit 4 and 5, have paid out of our culture funds for some of the things that Stacy's doing, and she's doing a fantastic job. I don't want that to go away, but I also want to be able, if an opportunity arises, like this young tribal business owner in Marquette offering a diaper workshop and working with the tribe, I want to be able to do that Like, we should be able to do that in our own units. And I also don't want to be subject to the Sault Ste. Marie telling every unit or every city or location what we can and can't do for our cultural activities, because what's going to happen if we go that way with policy, we're going to get nothing in the West End again. We already know that. You're probably not going to get anything in your community either. We already know that because the resources tend to stay here, which is where the majority of the population lies, so that makes sense for the most part. However, if we want these to continue, like I said, like, so I'm paying that person a small stipend, and they didn't even ask for one, right? And I just said, how many hours are you going to put into this? And for like our culture night, like most of the people there, everybody there volunteers. They help set up, they help clean up. They don't charge to bring the drum. They don't do anything. They never ask for anything. But when they need food, we want to be able to supply that. I don't want to go through an entire bureaucratic system to be able to supply food either. Like that would be a hindrance on our cultural activities. I just, we used to be a tribe where we helped each other, like, right? We stayed in familial units and we helped build this tribe together. And yeah, we're modernized now and we have structure based on all of these policies and stuff put in place. But like we put so many restrictions on ourselves that like Isaac can't even go lift up a hammer without getting called out, like, or go look at wiring. Like he got called out for like looking at wiring at a building. Like, I don't want our culture funds to be tainted that way, because right now, like, the people who attend these things are very, very, very grateful. And we try to spread it between the Marquette and Munising communities as much as we can, depending on who will come and do the activities. But I also don't want to be subject to just people from the Sioux coming down, because the ultimate intent is to grow our own, so we can get enough people to learn these things, to become a little bit more experts on them and teach. Like one of the young ladies who somebody just agreed to do a ribbon skirt workshop in my community, and she's never done this before, but she volunteered to do it. And like those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping to encourage. And yeah, I know it's not always going to be that way, but I think, I don't want to over restrict these activities either, because then we rely on the different divisions. These divisions are present in my communities. Like I don't have a YA in Marquette. I don't have a cultural coordinator in Marquette. So like who across our service area, and we're talking about potentially expanding services down into the Detroit area for healthcare and things of that nature. Like, I mean, it's not going to work at this point in time. Like, we would have to come a much more financially solvent tribe to equalize resources like that and have these positions in each of the units. So, I mean, it's not far off. I think it's there at the end of the tunnel eventually. We're heading in the right direction. But for cultural activities, I mean, if there is a policy that's supposed to be followed and accounting's getting the receipts and legal's reviewing things, I don't see any problem with that, because it protects us and it protects the people who are doing our cultural workshops. This whole thing came up because people are getting taxed out of cultural activities that I don't think should have gotten taxed. So I'm not supportive of too much bureaucracy on this. And you guys have to realize, like, we have a good thing going right now, with people really taking up culture on my end, and that used to be completely absent. And that is one of the things that I push for the hardest. I'm active in my communities, and like, I wish there was a cultural coordinator for every single unit, every single area, because it's not easy to do. Stacy was a godsend for the West End for us. But again, most of the activities Stacy has done for us, other than her payroll, has come from our unit culture funds. So I think that is important to know, that she does get some of our funds from us, actually a lot of them. So.
Okay, Kim.
Okay, it was split 5 ways for a reason, because we're each our own units. We didn't want other people telling us, like you just said, Tyler or Lana, how to spend your money in your unit, so that was good. That's a good thing we did. And if we're going to bring stuff forward, also put out there that that person might have been indicted, but they were found not guilty. It is true.
Hey, guys, we don't need to go back
Whatever,
and
you
forth
let
on
him
it.
mention it. He's talking about past employees, has nothing to do with this. And then I had one other thing, I should have wrote my notes down. Tyler said something. If I think of it, I'll raise my hand again, to do with this here, so.
Okay, so Aaron, I'm going to call on you. Before I do, I don't want there to be a back and forth debate between you and Kim regarding what we're going to talk about, because it doesn't take too much brain power to figure out who we're speaking about, okay? So if we're going to talk about it, don't bring up anything case specific. If you don't think anyone that has a certain indictment should receive cultural enhancement funds, that's fine. But I don't want anyone mentioned by name or to be able to say things that everyone knows.
I haven't, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I might publicly to get the support for the resolution, but, so it sounds like a Donald Trump, it was a beautiful clearance. I was found not guilty. That's not true. And Aaron Schlegelberg can tell you that the court system doesn't do that. They didn't, he didn't get convicted. The person didn't get convicted. That's very different. And the attorney who worked on it from the U.S. Western District will detail why we didn't get a conviction. So having said that,
Yep.
I will heed the direction. I will bring a resolution. I am going to name names in the resolution because I do think it's embarrassing, it's insulting that we are using our tribal funds to put children at risk.
Okay,
So
we can move on from there.
Okay.
And I know where you're coming from. I'm related to the family.
I have no recourse but to bring a resolution, so I will.
Okay, so what I want to say on this is I get where you guys are coming from, but improvements can be made like anything that we do in the tribe. You know, I don't have access to any cultural enhancement funds, but I did when I was a Unit 1 board member. And I know that we spent cultural enhancement funds on things that didn't enhance culture. I'll give you an example. We paid tens of thousands of dollars to a local gym while we have the Big Bear and we have a contract with Lake State to allow tribal members to go up there, right? And then when that arrangement severed, that gym owner went all over social media, threw us under the bus, and it was just completely inappropriate. So, you know, there's certain things that are done that aren't in culture, and I think the easy solution is just maybe at the once a year, maybe we publish what we're doing, you know, because it is stuff that we should be proud of, right? I'll say this, though, and I hope you guys don't consider this attack on anyone. I do not think that we should be having cultural enhancement funds for anyone on the election commission. And it's for the simple fact that we don't advertise how to access those funds. It's more or less word of mouth. I don't think I've ever seen anything on the tribe's website or the tribal papers stating, hey, if you guys are interested in providing cultural services from the tribe, the Sioux Tribe Board of Directors had a discretionary pot of funding, and this is how you can be eligible for it, right? So as far as improvements go, I don't have any issue with us maybe publishing that, because maybe there's a whole bunch of people that can offer those kind of workshops that just aren't knowledgeable that there is a process and that they can approach Tyler and say, hey, you know, I want to make a cradle workshop, you know what I mean? And this is how much I'm going to, you know, need for money, you know, but it's just my take on it. So, any other conversation on this? Bridget?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, when we first did this, it was because the outlying areas weren't getting the culture and education that we were asking for because we didn't have the people, we didn't have the money. And I know when I book the workshops, I try to get, and I have put it out in my report, and I have talked to people about, you know, I'd prefer to get people that are in our communities because they live there, they know people, and you can't always find those people that do those certain workshops. So I think that, you know, our people appreciate it, and I think it's a really good thing. And we also, you know, coordinate with the Museum of Ojibwe Culture in our community to do a lot of activities as well. So I'm thankful that we have it. I hope we don't want to put a bunch of restrictions on there just because we might not like people or whatever it is. I just, when I'm trying to find things that people want to do in the community, you always don't have, you know, a handful of people that are capable of doing those workshops, or, you know, that can actually teach them. You might be able to do it yourself, doesn't mean that you can teach them. So.
Okay, Rob.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So again, everything you guys just mentioned I agree, is a good thing for culture, and it's a good way to enhance culture, but it can be added to a budget and done formally. We could hire someone to do that in a position. Leaving this to board discretion is a conflict. Like I said, it's evidenced by look at who received it in the last 5 years and look at the political statements they make. Another thing is so this is generated from hotel tax, which means it's creating a pot of money that the membership has no real way of accounting for or holding us accountable for. It's pretty much a skirt around having to notice the members in an open meeting to spend their money. I don't agree with it. Like I said, build these things into a budget. Let's workshop with culture. Let's workshop with education. These are the things that were covered with it before, and we're going to put it in your budget, and we're going to manage it that way. I think that's the best way to go about it. Having this much discretion in board members' hands is going to lead to problems. I don't trust it. I never will. You want to do something good with it? How about let's divert all hotel tax into the land claims fund? What is more cultural than taking care of your elders? And what better obligation do we have than to pay back the land claims fund for previous boards borrowing from it? So I think we really need to evaluate what we're doing here with this hotel tax fund, and how ethical is it for board members to have that kind of discretion over any budget? I really don't think it is.
Okay, I don't see any more hands. Anything else to present, gentlemen?
No, I just want to try to summarize what I've kind of here are the big points. I'm going to retool this a little bit and bring it back again. I don't feel like it's ready for a vote yet. So I want to make this an overall general welfare exclusion policy. It'll incorporate cultural funds and any other fund source that we might pay out that may be tax exempt. So that looks like that's kind of a consensus, and make sure it's clear for how we're treated as employees if we are performing cultural funds. It was something everyone hit on, so I'll make that more clear and provide some more draft language, and to not, right now, unless the board acts otherwise, trying to limit the discretion right now. Back on as soon as I can with another workshop with the new draft, if that sounds good to everyone.
I have a question. Have we looked at other tribes and how they've crafted their general welfare exemption? Because we're looking in a very, very narrow scope of what we can enact for general welfare policy. And there's other things that we could be doing. So have we done a survey of what other or environmental scan of what other tribes are using their general welfare exemption for?
Yeah. We have, Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of them. We have reached out to certain other tribes, and everybody's kind of all over the map a little bit. Nobody's really consistent in what they want to do. They leave it up to the interpretation of the board or the tribe as far as, what they want to, how they want to define certain things. So,
well, I would recommend that we request from Ron Allen to see if he can share what their tribe has done. Because there's other policy areas that might be beneficial for us, and I'm sure Ron would give it to us, but formally, I won't make any contact.
All right, guys, appreciate it. Rob, your hand's up. Do you have something else to add, or did you forget to take it down?
Forgot to take it down. I will now.
Okay. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll jump into membership input session. So 5 minutes. Start making our way to our seats.
Holy crap, like it seems.
And Isaac can't touch it, because he's not allowed to work for the tribe.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. The item that we're on right now is membership input session.
Okay. That membership input session. I know that when we first brought it together, I think it's way beyond what we intended at the beginning. That's my opinion. I think that, you know, I get embarrassed and I feel frustrated when a member comes to the table and asks a question, a basic question that we can answer that doesn't have to go through a mail process, or have Michelle do it. And this is nothing on Michelle, because I think she does a fantastic job. So I don't want to characterize that she doesn't. I think that in the past, and everybody hold your seats, I'm going to give kudos to Aaron Paymont here. In the past, if there was a basic question such as, where are you at with the restaurant? Where are we at with any kind of activity that we're doing? He would respond to that. If we didn't like his response, we could object, go through the process, or he would use his discretion if it was something controversial. And he can defer to the membership liaisons to address that in writing. But the basic reason that I'm asking for us to relook at that is that, Austin, you have a role at the head of the table to be the spokesman for the board. You do that at the national level, you do that at the state level, and frankly, I think that you should do it at the tribal level. When members come in and ask a question, and it's basic, you have the discretion on whether you want to answer it or not, but when is the powwow? When is the next meeting? What is the location? Simple explanations deserve feedback of some sort from the table. I do not, and I appreciate that you don't let anybody get attacked anymore, because I was there for a very long time. So that, and I 100% support that. And you've been consistent about that, so I appreciate that. But I would also appreciate that you represent us at this table to the tribal membership that take the time to come here. Because although I agree that some come here for a different reason, some are sincere and just are coming here to get a basic question answered or get information from us. And I think that you can use your discretion to answer those questions. If it's controversial, if you think it's going to lead to an attack, but I don't like just sitting here not having some kind of response back to them in any way, shape, or form when I'm sitting here. And frankly, we didn't always do it that way. So I don't like how that, and nobody talked me into coming here and doing this. I didn't, I'm doing it because that's what I believe as an elected leader. So that's what I'm asking the tribal board of directors to consider, changing that up so that a basic question can be answered when a tribal member comes here to ask a question.
Okay, if anyone wants to speak on it, Kim Hampton, Aaron, anyone else have their hands up? Bridget? Okay, let me write this down. Okay, Kim Hampton, go ahead.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I understand where Lana's coming from. I don't know the history of how the board was prior to me being on it. I guess I know how everything it doesn't matter, even if Austin feels it's discretionary, like he could, maybe answer a question. I just feel everything that comes out of our mouths, whether it's in a membership concern, a board concern, at the table, it's always politicized. Every single time. Words are just constantly, I don't know. I just feel it's set up the way it is right now to protect us as a board, but also our tribe also. And I do feel that there are some sincere people who do come with legitimate questions looking for an answer. And I hate to say this, but they have other ways of asking those questions and not just at a board table. And I know that sounds harsh, but I feel like a few have definitely ruined it for the rest. So I understand where Lana's coming from, but I don't think I fully agree with it. I think just to protect all of us, we have to just kind of keep it as is and make sure that Michelle and what other departments might be necessary are able to make sure that the response is going to be something that is politically correct. So, thank you.
Aaron.
So I'm going to be probably a little middle ground on this because I agree with Lana to the extent that if we have simple programmatic responses that we can be informative and we can help with that. And I think that the chairperson is the ideal person to be the balance of that, right, to interpret whether or not. I watched the meetings for the 2 years that I was out of office, so I completely understand the hesitancy because I have a short list of names that I won't read out loud, but it's people who came here for the specific purpose of trying to instigate an argument, to try to create some kind of a impetus for the members to consider them to run for office. They're mostly not coming now. They come around just before election time. And the behavior that I saw from some of those people was swearing, and they should have been barred from the facilities for at least a year. Some of the questions they were asking were questions they clearly knew the answers to, but they did it on purpose to try to get a rise and get an audience. I appreciate Lana's kudos. I don't remember things exactly that way, but I do know whenever I tried to give a response to a simple answer to satisfy people so it didn't look like we were keeping secrets, I would ask without objection, I'll give a brief response. Or if I didn't know the answer, which I usually did, which I think some people didn't like because I knew the answer, but if I didn't know the answer, I would ask Christine if she had a response, or Bob or John Wernette if they had a quick response. I think programmatic responses are good. They're okay, they're good, but I also think it needs to be the chair's discretion to make that decision because you know the pulse, you're watching, you know the people who are not asking genuine questions that are here to try to stir the pot. And if there's any chance that it's going to go over the line, I think you should default to a closed session if there's a chance based on that person's past performance that they're going to try to launch an attack. I also want to remind everybody this policy was enacted by the board. And so it's been difficult for me to watch the last several months where people kind of make it look like it's Austin that's not giving you the information or Austin that's not being forthcoming, because any one of us at any point can say, I object, or they can make a motion to provide the answer, that you can intervene. We should need to work as a team. Also, some people who've been around for a while know this is true. When Bernard was chair and I was on the board, if somebody came here to do that kind of crap, I was the first one to object. Bernard and I didn't see eye to eye. But if somebody was here to feel funny when it's Austin being attacked or when it was me being attacked, and you don't feel any responsibility to stand up for the decorum of the tribe, but that's all of our job. And I watched those meetings for 2 years, and I saw some smirks and some smiles, and one day you're going to be in that role. You're going to be attacked. and you're going to want the group to say it's inappropriate. So we should stop that. So I don't think we need to change the policy, but I think if Mr. Chairman, if you could consider, if you do have a simple programmatic response, or if you want to defer to the executive director, or sometimes it might be like accounting. Like one question we got online, although we didn't get it here, was how much is the elder check? I do know we send out with the registration some basic information about the elder, how it works and when you're going to get the elder check. I know we send it also out when the check comes. That doesn't satisfy people because they always forget, right? But so I think we could get behind, and we should all get behind. And I know you don't, some of you don't feel any responsibility to the social media stuff that people are putting out, but when they're attacking the chair for denying people, when the chair is following the policy we enacted, we all have a responsibility there. Maybe you don't want to stick your neck out, but I do, to say that's not it's not true, it's not appropriate, you know, so he's following the policy. So the final thing is, somebody did say the other day, earlier today, we should have done my open session items before we closed, because people are now saying that we're going to try to conceal that information. We're not going to provide that information. I've said, no. It's just we got heated in a closed session, and we never got back to it. And by the time we did, likely everybody was gone. And so I'll just bring it up at the next meeting. But anyway, so that's what I think. The middle ground is, I think we can give programmatic and simple responses. If it even deviates towards individual board member attacks, it shouldn't happen, and that should also be true for the board member issues. The board having to bring their issues up and maybe go through the staff first. One question I think you should probably ask, even if it's a programmatic question, have you asked the housing director for this information? Have you gone to ACFS? Have you asked the executive director for this information? Because we shouldn't be the first step for them. They could also call any one of us. Our numbers are posted in the travel paper. Coming to a board meeting and putting on a show, and that's not what everybody will do, is not the only way to get the answers to your question. It's a way to advocating during election.
I remember coming to board meetings before I actually ran for the board, when I worked for the tribe for years, and back then our staff would all be at the meetings, and you could go, and whoever had a question, they would say, you know, Ken Ermentanger, Tony Gates, whoever it was, they would have them answer the question they came up and asked. And that was great because people got their answer then. I know over the years a lot's changed. We have, you know, Zoom, we have social media. There's a lot of ways that people can talk to us now that wasn't possible back then. But I do think that we need some sort of happy medium. And I know, obviously, I was here when we made those changes. It seems like we were over in Newberry when we changed this, because sometimes it was the board or chair that was on a soapbox and, you know, could make the meeting go forever. It could get political, it could get ugly, all kinds of things. There's always going to be members that, there's going to be some that like are sincere and some that might have you know, a purpose that they want to do it for. I've heard people before say they've been paid to come and ask questions. I don't think we're ever going to stop that kind, but we shouldn't punish the genuine people for asking those. I think, like I said, somehow we need a happy medium. If we can, Austin can answer the question, or, you know, Tyler or someone else, or maybe it's another board member that has the knowledge of the question they're asking, or one of our staff. A lot of times we have our executive staff here. We could, if we didn't want to make it so it was political by somebody else answering it, we could say, you know, Christine or Bob, or, you know, I mean, Janet, for one, used to always ask John Wernett, you know, what's in the land claims fund, and or Bill Conley, and they would run back to their computer and they would give her the information. It was right then. So, you know, I think that we can do better at what it is, and I think the members, and I understand, they feel like we're, hiding information from them. We don't want them to know, and I think we need to do better with it. And answer, like I said, those questions that we can. I see their frustration. I think, we used to have a big audience, and it changes during campaign season. You see more people here. But I think it's unfortunate that hardly anybody comes. You look out in the audience now, and it's mostly staff, probably because people aren't getting answers when they do come here. So I think somehow we should change this up a little bit if we can, and allow people, if Austin knows it's an answer, hey, do you guys have a problem with me answering this? Or if he thinks it's going to be ugly, go into closed. Or, like I said, another board member that may know more about the subject, or staff. So just as many answers as we can get out that day, because there's people watching that may have that same question, and it's answered right then.
Okay, Kim Lee.
Okay, so things did get pretty messy there for a while, but it's my opinion that we've now set a precedent and a standard by enacting policy. On a positive note, policies can be adjusted and changed. And we have expectations of how we expect members to present to us, and I think that's with the understanding of mutual respect, and we've now set that. Do I disagree that maybe we should try again, and worst case is it doesn't work, shut it back down? But I don't think that that many members should be punished based on other members' behaviors. So I don't disagree that I think that we should try it, but again, policies can be adjusted. So if it's something that we try and isn't going to work because it turns into a battlefield and unproductive, then it can also be shut back down. But I'm not opposed to trying again and making sure that we all respect each other and have that mutual respect and understanding. So that's all.
Okay, Rob.
So I could see where members get frustrated, because I was told the other day that it could take up to 6 months to get a response, sometimes even longer, which is absolutely unacceptable. I think as a governing body, we should set a certain time limit on when we could get these answers back. But I am kind of hesitant to go down this road of leaving it up to the discretion of the chair of what he's going to answer and what he's not, because then we're going to open him up to being attacked for, well, you're setting a different set of standardized rules for one set of members versus the other, because some things we know we can't answer right on the spot, whether the information's not available to us to get the exact accurate info. Some questions that are asked, I see many board members' head immediately turn towards legal, like, is that proprietary, or are we crossing the line? Or are we open ourselves up to liability? There's all kinds of questions there, but when it comes down to it, if there's a reason we can't answer a question on the spot, then it's denying that member an answer right now that someone else may have gotten. So I think that there's a difference in the set of rules we're presenting to one versus the other. Plus, our chair is an elected official. So whether it's Austin or another chair down the road, you're basically giving them authority to, hey, answer what questions you want and which ones you don't want, which I don't know if I agree with that either. So I think that there's a very small amount of people who are actually upset that they don't get an answer right then. Most reasonable people will say, I can wait a week or two for a response. 6 months? Absolutely not. That's not acceptable. So I'm okay with putting in a policy that says, you will get an answer within 2 weeks and it's going to be accurate. I'm okay with that. I don't think we should go down this road of answer some members' questions on the spot, other members not, and then given someone discretion to determine when to do that and when not to do that. And then who's to decide what's politically charged and what's not? Because some questions, I believe that members have an absolute right to know, but when they're asked, they're going to be considered political. I mean, if we put in place that all members get an answer on the spot, you can bet that a member is going to show up and say, what happened to the Unit 2 trailer? And there's a quick answer for that. Someone's not going to like it, but there's a quick answer for it. How much money did we lose on golf courses? There's a quick answer for that. I don't think you're going to want to give it on the spot, though. But I think members should know those things, and I think it should be answered on the spot. So my hesitation on this is just creating a set of rules at our discretion that could be used for certain members and not certain members. I think the best way to do it is to have a uniform set of rules, and since we can't answer every question on the spot, then all answers should have to wait the exact same amount of time, and we should have a set time certain to do it, which would be 1 week, 2 weeks, definitely not 6 months, though. That's unacceptable for a member to wait that long. But yeah, I don't want to have different subsets of rules for members based on elected officials' discretion on what they think they can answer and what they can't answer. I would just rather have it be uniform.
Okay, Tyler.
Sorry. I'm actually, kind of in agreement with Rob on this one as well, and a couple other people who spoke. So originally our intention was to be as open as possible, but it's clear that our good intentions were quickly taken advantage of with the behavior in our meetings by some of the constituents, and it was out of control. I don't like to see any board member get attacked, and our chair has been attacked aggressively with some extreme falsehoods. Like, the guy can't even coordinate a food distribution without getting attacked online for, I've set up so many food distributions, and the cold weather distributions are the hardest. And Chairman Lowe's has a good heart and good intent in the stuff he does for our Sioux Tribe community. So to see him get run through the mud all the time based on a policy that the board implemented, I agree with what Aaron stated earlier about, we have to stand up for the policy that's in place too. And I don't like seeing Lana get attacked during an election season, or anybody get attacked from the board, especially when some of the answers are extremely complex and can take a while. And I understand that, in the past, members in the room would be able to ask a question and get an answer from some of our executives, but things have changed, and it's not the past anymore. Now our meetings are a platform for people to jump on social media, take sound bites, act up, and be on camera and think it's all funny. It's not funny. We're running a government, and you can't go to your city government meeting and behave that way and expect to be allowed to stay. The sheriff will kick you out, or whoever their sergeant at arms is. And that's something that we had to fix and implement as well. So I'm supportive of the structure. I would like to see some changes, though, so responses are more immediate, like Rob said. As long as something is within 2 weeks, if it takes some digging or we don't have an answer for something, I wouldn't expect an answer to come in 2 weeks. But the other thought, too, is, so because I know that a lot of these things are being followed up with and tracked, like, why don't we just create an online database on our website, create another tab, put the name of the person, the date they asked the question, and then the date the response and the response to the question. As long as it's not proprietary information, then the entire tribe will know the answer to the questions that were asked. And I think that should happen, because a lot of times some good questions are asked, and well-meaning people really would like the answer to them, and some people are watching online, they're like, hey, what was the answer to that question? And we don't all see all of those answers either. So I think it would be beneficial to our tribe if we put that in place. But then having an online database will also show the bad actors too. The bad actors that are being discussed, and like the legitimate whether the questions are legitimate or not legitimate. I do think, though, there is a time and a place for things like that. And it would be like a community event or a town hall event or something like that, something similar in nature to what we did in Detroit. I think that was very well received. It was a good dialogue with that community, and all of the board were participating in the conversation. Fortunately enough, the people there were not attacking us or spreading rumors or purposely misleading information to start like some rumor mill on social media, but I think something like that in the future could benefit our tribe in some way, shape, or form. Again, I would think that there would need to be a sergeant at arms so things don't get out of control, because most government meetings have somebody, a sheriff or somebody in place to escort people out who are not behaving appropriately. Because it is one thing to take part in your tribe and your community. It is another thing to attack somebody's integrity based on lies and mistruths. So that is, it's a tricky situation. I think there's a time and a place. The member participation is a time for them to come and speak to us. Not all of them ask questions either. Some of them are just saying, here's a piece of information I would like you guys to know. But I think to be more transparent that we actually are following up and these people are being answered, simple, like Austin said, shed light on it, put it on an online database for people to access. Then you know what's being asked, then you know what's being answered, and you know the time frame in which it's done. Yield.
Okay, Lana, Isaac, Aaron.
Yeah. Actually, that's the first I heard, that it was taking 6 months for a response. I didn't even have that into the equation.
So 1 second on that. Michelle, you're online right now. How long is it taking for responses?
Typically, I try to get them as quickly as possible. When I first started in this position, there were, in the beginning, yes, it did take me a little while. I think 6 months was the... But there are times when it does take me a while because I'm waiting for the answer.
Okay, and then the last question, would you be able to answer tribal members on the spot when they sit down, like basic questions, like when's the check coming out?
If I have that information, absolutely.
Okay.
Back to me? Yep. Yeah, and I didn't hear that, Michelle. And this, like I said at the beginning, this does not reflect anything on you. This is how I feel. There's no nefarious reason I brought it up other than what I said at the beginning. It frustrates me. I never said it was Austin's policy. I'll never say that. It was a board of directors policy that we put in place, and I'll own that. It morphed into something that frustrates me and that I'm not okay with, and it's nothing more than that. The flip side of us not giving information on the spot when we can is what I hear every single board member complain about, and that's the Facebook posts. When they don't have factual information from their leadership, they make it up. They don't know what is going on. So if we can answer those questions when they're with us twice a month, if we can answer those questions, when are we getting our elder check? When's the next language conference? What's the update on the restaurant at the casino? If we have that information, people can just cite and say, go look at the board meeting. They answered that question tonight. I'm trying to be proactive in our communication to the members. If it's something that is contentious, if it's something that's debatable, don't answer it. But we're all grown adults. We all are elected leadership. And the membership does have a right, whether it's just at election time or not, to come here and voice anything they want to us. So I really like the idea that Tyler just brought up, and that's a pegboard or whatever on our Facebook of questions answered, or questions asked and questions answered. Because if we got good at that, we could cite that to people and say that question's been answered. It doesn't have to be made up on Facebook. This is the factual information. So I think that's a start. And if nothing else, that's a start. That's why I brought this conversation here. I'm not trying to dictate to Austin to answer the questions. I think that transparency and us what we can answer would help in letting membership know the facts on what's going on. So I'm actually happy with this. I'm happy that there's some board members that are willing to make a change. Austin, I hope you consider answering some questions. I think, who brought it up? Bridget and Aaron brought up the fact that Christine and all of them were in the room. In the past, if Aaron couldn't answer the question, then he'd ask Christine. If Christine was prepared to answer it, she'd jump right up and answer it. Tony Gates, jump right up and answer it. I remember Tony doing that. And if they weren't, they'd say, I'm not comfortable, I need more information. I think, another reset, and I'm going to use that word a lot because I'm doing a reset on my own self. So, yeah. So let's try something different, and then they won't have to. You look real frustrated, Austin.
I just have a lot to say when it's my turn.
Yeah. So I'm happy with this conversation. I'm happy that I'm not the only one feeling that way, and members do have a right to get information from us on the spot if we can give it. So that's it.
Okay, Isaac, then Aaron.
You have a lot to say. I'll keep mine short then. I just don't think it, until we can conduct ourselves in a better manner, I don't know how we can ask the membership to conduct themselves in a better manner. So why would we give them the invitation where we gotta take care of them? And I just don't think that's going to work. I do believe a couple things. I mean, with the internet and with communications that we have nowadays, right, in the world, there's no reason somebody can't pick up a phone, send a text, send an email, and get the answer they want. Everybody, there's a lot of stuff that's we have in closed session that's out on the internet now anyways. So I don't know what the big deal is. We know why those people are actually asking the questions. They're just standing on a platform and they want to be heard. Well, if you really want the answer, call me. I'll give you what I can give you. If it's not confidential, right? Not a problem. The other thing is, I think a membership portal question, if it's not confidential, and the answer. And it should be done like in a 2-week or less, right, response time. If they can't find the question, right, but a simple question, when's checks coming out, I don't think they need to ask that to us. And my big concern about that is, why is it so low? Where are you going to stop when they keep arguing back and forth? When are you going to cut them off? They're not going to stop. They're here for a reason. And that's to put us on a pedestal where they can beat us up. Or target certain individuals. But during election cycle, I do not think we should give them any response if we do change. I don't think we should give anybody the platform to target people. I yield.
Okay, Aaron?
So I'm glad Christine's not here because she'd be a little confused, because over time we have had an expectation that all staff be present, and then she gets in trouble when all staff are traveling and the expense of all of that. And then the question is, why doesn't Christine know the answer? We've been back and forth on that, and she's been told, we want them all there. She's been told, nope, we only want you there. And most of the answers are going to be able to come from Christine and Bob and legal, right? So we don't need a fleet of staff present. But the other thing is we already do have a membership portal. Maybe we need a refresher or a presentation from our membership team. They do, the membership liaisons and Jessica do coordinate. They receive membership questions at the membership. There's a separate email address. They receive that. One thing that maybe individual requests, but it sounds like there's a desire to put a common response out. And they have done that too. The membership liaisons have put articles in the tribal paper, so maybe take a look at their articles because they're doing this now. And they will pose a question that they got, they'll pose the response, and they also do that on the website. They do that now. We already have a membership portal. But general questions that we get lots of questions about, we might want to highlight those and rotate those back to the top and have an informational response there. I heard just a few minutes ago that we need a uniform set of rules and that we shouldn't have the discretion of the chair be the decider. That is the way it is right now. That's the policy. The policies are the membership participation form, the parliamentary meeting rules, and the Open Meetings Act. Personnel matters, property, and legal are all closed confidential items. And so, like an example, recently, my cousin, who she brought here, and she lambasted, the health issues and actually alluded to staff performance, right? That is clearly a closed item, and that was appropriately put in closed. So that was the right choice. But, I'm not advocating for this, but if they feel like they want to be part of the decision-making of what should be open and should be closed, maybe once the membership forms come in before we start the meeting, the chairman reads through those really quickly with just the board present and say, this one is asking for this, that's open. This one is closed, go closed. And if a board member objects to that decision-making, they can make that objection then, and we can poll the board to see. One board member objection is irrelevant. If the chair is following the policy, it doesn't matter if that board member objects to it, because we want the policies to be followed. And we want to make sure that people aren't bleeding out and then sneaking in an attack, whether it's a direct attack or it's a snide remark, because I've seen those too. So we do have a policy already, and if we don't trust that that's being followed, then maybe we just need a closed session of just the board and the chair, and then maybe Lana says, here's the items that are in front of us, or maybe Michelle, and then Austin says, well, that one's open, that one's open, that one's closed, because personnel. If we need to look over at legal and have legal say it too, so that Austin gets a little bit more credibility and not just blamed for moving people into closed session. So maybe that's the way to do it, but I like the idea of you being able to answer straightforward questions, programmatic questions. What that will do is that will isolate this argument, because right now the argument is that somehow we're keeping secrets or we're denying people and it's festering. But if we do answer the general questions, but the closed session's got to go into closed, then we blow the wind out of their sails. They don't get to make that argument because they're really here to try to stir the pot and attack either the chairperson or members of the board.
Yeah, do you guys mind if I say a couple things? So no one is keeping information from the membership. Michelle does a wonderful job. There's complex, I apologize, I'm a frog in my throat. There's complex questions that sometimes take a long time to get answers to. She sometimes has to reach out to different departments. But most of the gimme questions, she's calling them the day after, or staff is grabbing them out there, or people in the audience that know the answer are letting them know. So let's clear that air right away. I also want to remind everyone, when I assumed my chairmanship, this is the way we did it. But we reverted away from that because things became chaotic. People were standing on chairs during meetings. The board had to pass a resolution to allow me to kick them out. When I would kick them out, board members would sometimes object, even when people were screaming the F word at us. I remember in one meeting, a member out there in the audience screamed, "Go have sex with your boyfriend in Vegas," except they didn't use that word, they used the F word. So what that did is it just added fuel to a fire. You know what I mean? We had people being followed out in the parking lot where law enforcement had to follow them out. It was absolutely shameful. And it's really too bad because this is where we work. And I would see those people at their places of employment and be nothing but polite to them. So if it wasn't aggressive, it was snide. And it wasn't a large group of people. It's a small group of people who consistently run in elections. And it's politicized questions. If you have a question, it shouldn't matter whether or not it's an open or closed, because regardless of that, you're going to get your answer, unless your motivation is to be on YouTube, where we have our meetings aired, right? So that's my position on it. You know what I mean? It gives a soapbox to people to come in here, attack staff, attack the direction that we're moving in, and things are taken out of context. And Rob's right. If I have the discretion to answer some questions, people are going to say, well, why aren't you answering others? Rob mentioned a couple issues that, with all due respect, Lana objected to even being asked about. So it's like, which is it?
Not asked about, targeted on.
Well, that's the reality of it. Sometimes questions are going to be asked that you guys don't like the answer to. And let's cut through the BS. I'm an elected official, right? The answer shouldn't be a political one. It should be a professional one, which is what Michelle gives. So if a member comes in and says, why is my elder check only $360? There can be, okay, well, that's what the interest divided by all the elders is. Or it can be the board hasn't invested anything in the principal, which is accurate. That's an accurate answer that an elected official might provide during election season, but it's not appropriate. So if we have questions, Michelle is doing a wonderful job answering them. I don't want to get into this politics anymore. So we get in these meetings, we get out, we handle business, we get out, and if anyone has questions, they get answered. Everyone knows that. And Michelle will tell you, she's online right now. Sometimes people say, honey, I know the answer. I'm just trying to put them on the spot right now. And that's unfortunate. It really is. So I haven't heard from Sean. I haven't heard from Larry. I haven't heard from Kim Gravel. Like, you guys can chime in. Like, that's the way it was. People were standing on chairs. We had to have law enforcement escort people out to their cars. Like, it was aggressive and really unfair. And since then, things have been smooth. Isaac.
Hey, Aaron and Bridget. And so many different, right? I mean, I remember the time that people got up, and Jim Janetta, Dan Weaver, any of them, and they would answer the question. But then I remember the time just after that where it was shut down, you didn't do nothing. I remember the time when I was running for election, when some of the board members that are currently here, I went up and asked the question just before I got elected, and I never ever got a response. So, I mean, it works both ways, and we've been through it all.
And I want to remind people of something. Do you remember when Kim Hampton was followed home? Kim, you're online. Unmute yourself. Talk about that. A vehicle followed her from the parking lot. She tried to lose them. They followed her.
So, yes, actually, I literally pulled out of the parking lot, and it was after I got, followed out the door. And then I get my vehicle, and I'm going to drive away, and there was this vehicle that pulled away. I mean, I didn't think anything of it at first. And then I got blocks and blocks away, and I kept purposely making weird turns, and they kept following me. And I'll be honest, I went to Austin's house, and when I was pulling in the driveway, that vehicle stopped at the next intersection, sat there, watched me for a few minutes, and then they took off.
Some of those people are the people that come here. So, Larry.
I feel it's a catch thing. I agree that this simply, we should just answer it. If not, we'll refer it to Michelle. But Austin, I do see your point. I mean, there were people standing on chairs. It could get crazy.
So we can authorize Michelle, hey, the easy questions that I can answer right up here, answer it as soon as they get to their seat. It's not a political answer from me, it's a professional one, and if you have to get with different departments to get that answer, go ahead and do that. Take the time, get an accurate answer. If that's what it is about just getting answers to your questions, it shouldn't matter. And I'll tell you, during election season, I wouldn't have any problem if every single member concern was enclosed. Because again, if you truly have a question, if you truly have a concern, you can address us, but it doesn't have to be politicized. And that's what it is every single time. And that's what we're trying to get away from. And if people want to engage in that, I have 2 words. Oh, well, actually 3. Get a life. Get a life. Aaron.
You know, I'm glad that you brought that up about our safety, because we don't pay enough attention to that. And I take that very seriously. And while several of us, I mean, a lot of us are not on the same page politically, right? And we're not necessarily friends. But I would never, ever want anybody on this board or our staff, because our staff are not elected, this is their job, to be physically harmed because they're doing their job. And in the past, like we had one incident where somebody came here, and board members were chuckling about it. They were laughing about it. That woman had a mental breakdown. She tried to stab somebody at the health center with a Eagle staff. That person was unraveling in front of us, and we were demanding that she have the opportunity to address the board in a public session. That's one example. Another one was Steve Bono. Steve Bono, guns buried behind the and they found it funny. And guess where Steve Bono is now? He's in prison for murdering somebody. So we should take it seriously, and we should never want any one of us to be physically harmed or any of our family to be harassed or harmed. So we should take that seriously. And so that's different than giving a general response to somebody that can easily just kind of could deflate the issue so it doesn't look like we're keeping secrets or whatever. But like, you know, the blurred line is the last person who came in front of us who went into closed session, who launched a tirade that could lead to violence. It could, because it sounded like we're just failing miserably at the health center, that staff are leaving in droves, and that should never be an open session. I think that was a proper choice.
And I'll tell you something about that. We can't even confirm or deny that person's a patient due to HIPAA. So we can't even call the health divisions, hey, someone was here, they had some complaints about the medical services they received. Michelle wouldn't even be able to get an answer regarding whether or not they're even seen. It's a setup.
Yeah, it is. And so I've been set many, many times over the years. I know what it's like. I've seen other board members set up many times over the years. I've done my best to try to stop it, and we should not ever allow it, because the unintended consequence, you may not intend it, and it might be kind of satisfying at the moment to see somebody on the hot seat. But we don't control the mental health of other people. And we've seen things in public right now in society where people are killing people. They're bringing guns in. It would be easy to bring a gun in and come in here and kill all of us. It would be easy to do that. And there are people that have mental health problems where our behavior is we allow happen. Been very episodic and lackadaisical about being here. Sometimes they're not here. When I see somebody in the audience I've never seen before, I've got a little concern about that, right? And law enforcement should be here at every meeting. Every meeting they should be here.
Go ahead, Kim.
It's now cool.
So I'd like to bring up the other side of that, okay? We've got all these negatives, right? We also have the elders who come in who that personal connection is big for them. And we all don't have time to go sit at their house. So maybe they've got a question about something. And they're our teachers. And sometimes they just want to come in and give us a compliment. And here we sit with our mouths open looking at them. Vicki Carr-Walden came in to celebrate her son with us, and what that means for warriors all over America and in the world, really, and what they fought. And there we sat with our mouths open. I mean, it goes way beyond that. Even the good, positive things, sure, we've got the negative, and those are the things that we don't want to see and we don't want to deal with and whatever else. But there's a lot that goes, I think, a little deeper than that we can't say, oh, congratulations, and not that we can't, but if we do it for one, we got to do it for everybody. It becomes that, what do you do, right? So everybody just sits here and stares. Do we care? Don't we? Do we? It really just gives mixed signals all across. And so I think on the opposing side of all that negative is the positive that comes. And sometimes it comes even in compliments. And we don't look at that these are our elders, that they're just looking to say, hey, we appreciate the work that you're carrying on and everything that you're doing. And that's it. So I think that there's another side to that, and I don't think that they should be punished for some people's struggles with their mental health or their anger. So that's all.
But I mean, that's a perfect example with Vicki, because Vicki wanted to come here and tell us about an exemption in the military if you have long hair, like a cultural exemption. I mean, I knew about that. I traveled to Washington, D.C., spoke with Jack Bergman, spoke to other elected leaders about it. Before the meeting, she told me about what it was, told her it was awesome, so we were already on the same page. But I mean, I stand by it. Like, if there's an easy question, Michelle has the ability to answer it. All the staff's there. If she doesn't know, she can just walk up and talk to them. It doesn't place any of us in the crosshairs. It doesn't politicize an answer where there's sound bites created. And, it's an accurate answer. It's not me up here shooting from the hip. She's talking to staff, and she gets the answer, and if she needs more time, then she'll reach out to them. I really do believe that's the compromise here, guys. Sean, you're shaking your head. You okay with that? Okay. Larry, you okay with that? Yep. Kim? Okay. We good with that, guys?
What about Lana?
Okay. Lana? Well, I know you're not in on it. You want me to?
No, you don't know that. You don't know that.
I just listened to you. I'm the one that came up with it.
You don't know that. Maybe I'm on reset.
Well, are you okay with that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even Christine's the CEO, so, I mean, or, the different key employees could also be the ones that answer over all their programs.
So Michelle, do you have the ability to do that? If someone asks an easy question like when the checks go out, you obviously follow what goes on in the tribe. You attend, the meetings, what's being voted on. You can answer that question. If you don't, we have consistently Bob, Aaron Schlehuber, Jessica Dunback, Christine McPherson, Danny's here a lot of time. Most of the executives are here. And if it is an easy answer, you can get that. And if that truly is about getting a question answered, problem solved. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And honestly, in the almost 2 years that I've been in this position doing this job, I can probably count on one hand the number of times that people have came in and asked a relatively easy, could possibly answer on the spot question. Most of their questions do require time to investigate, to find an answer, to talk to not only one executive director, but have to go to multiple people to get an answer for one question. So it's not as easy or as difficult sometimes, but like I said, for how long I've been in this position, I could probably count on one hand the number of times where I've had an easy question.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say is each unit has elder meetings that, we have the ability to answer people's questions there. The tribe pays for all of us to have the latest iPhone. Our phone numbers are advertised in the tribal paper, on the tribal website, and it's on all of us to answer those questions. And if it's done right, I don't think easy questions will be answered here. You know what I mean? Like if there's an easy question, someone isn't going to get in their car, drive to a board meeting. They probably already have that answer. But if they don't, Michelle will have the ability and the authorization from here on out to answer it. And if it doesn't work out, we can readjust it. But, as far as people complaining about me, I could care less on the internet. I could care less. So it doesn't bother me one bit.
It's not about you. It's about the appearance that the tribe is keeping information from people. And if there's simple answers, let's just give them the answer so that we'll blow that argument, the wind out of those sails, and then the people who are the bad actors, and we know who they are. We know the shit that they do, the crap that they bring forward. We know that. I've faced it many years, and we can make excuses about it. We can say, let's leave the past in the past. But if it were continuing to happen, then we wouldn't have to talk about this. We wouldn't have this hesitancy.
Lana.
Yeah, and I agree with Aaron. Austin, it's not about you. It definitely is not. If we don't give out that information, if we're not answering the question, it's made up. It's made up. People elaborate. And I've heard board members complain about every single week I come here. People are complaining about what they read on the internet because it's not true. I found 2 facts today that I read on the internet where simply were not true. I can't repeat them because it was in closed session. But I mean, just answering a simple question. If this board of directors wants our staff member to have to answer that question on the spot, so be it. I just think, and I've seen it work, and I don't ever give Paymont kudos, but I'm giving him kudos. He actually did, and if we didn't like the answer, we objected, moved on, or whatever. And if he said, without objection, can I answer that question? Because I know, and it worked for a very long time. So, and then that was when the internet was just starting out. People still talk, but refer to what was said at the board meeting, So I think there's a happy medium to it. I still hope that we go down the avenue that we'll have, as a leadership, have a dialogue back and forth with the membership. Because, again, it's their right to come here anytime that they want to come here. They can come here and ask questions. So, I don't know.
Let's try it.
All right,
Yeah.
Tyler.
So a lot of what we're talking about is stuff you hear on the internet. So again, a lot of those people are spreading misinformation purposely. They don't care what the answer is. They're going to put their point of view up to get their followers to interact with their content and turn them against the people they're against because we refuse to respond to them, or we've refused to be, not respond to them, but do their bidding. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got two people in general, I will say, on either side, right? Two main instigators of this. And the whole purpose they do these things on the internet is to get you guys, us, to change our votes on things because they don't like the way it is. And I refuse to lead that way. I refuse to be bullied on the internet. I don't care. They can bully me night and day. It does not change the fact that I'm going to come to this table and do what's right. Now, the other thing that I do to help stem this, I do have, I think, 1 or 2 people within the Unit 5 that do respond to these people on social media and do not reach out to me. But I work my butt off to respond to every email and every phone call. And, recently I just got back to somebody who reached out to me 2 months ago with a buried email, and I apologize for it. But I try my hardest to respond to people who ask me questions. And I can tell you that the people on social media, they don't care about the answer that's being made. They care about their likes and follows. That's it. They purposely spread misinformation. So regardless of what happens here, this is why I said, put the person's name on there, put the question on our website, and then put the response that Michelle gives them. Easiest way to confirm that we're actually giving people the information is to make it public, because if they're allowed to ask the question in public, we should be able to respond to the question in public. And that will be a consistency that we will have, and they can play on their games all they want on social media, but I am not going to do what their bidding is, because I am elected to do what's best for the tribe as a whole, and that's how I base my decision. And I make myself accessible to the people in my unit. I try to attend elder meetings whenever possible. I go out to have coffee with people when they ask me to have coffee. I answer phone calls, I return phone calls, I return emails. And a lot of the people that are spreading this stuff are the people that do not reach out to me. So I'm not in support of anything other than making it public. Just make it public. Instead of making Austin answer on the spot, put it up on our website, create a tab, have a running list of questions, and then just archive them from there. But that way everybody knows who asked the question. You already know who asked the question. It's in a recorded meeting on YouTube, and then the responses on our website showing the membership that we responded to it with the correct answer, as long as it is not proprietary information or attacking one of our staff or protected information. Clearly, we can't respond to that. We can't even respond to the membership on that. Yield.
Okay, Aaron.
So I just want to be careful. There's a difference between a legitimate request. This is going to echo Kim's, and she's not here, so she's not going to hear it, but she stepped out. There are legitimate requests. There are people that are not fueled by that hate and that historical trauma and that, overthrow the government focus, right? So let's be careful not to paint a broad brush like that, because there are very potent people that are doing that, but the vast majority of our members are not doing that. So I'm going to share some advice that Bill King gave to me years ago when I first got on the board. They kind of, I don't know that they knew what to think of me for the first couple of years, but he finally took me aside and he said, "Young man, your job is to represent all the members, not the biggest mouth in the room. And just because some people are the bad actors that are doing it, if there's a vacuum, and this is what Lance said, if there's a vacuum of information, it's easy for that vacuum to be filled up with the crap that people are putting out. So it would behoove us to not say, I don't have to be responsible for our members. We do have a exactly what we should do, because then they have no platform. We eliminate their platform. Right now they have the platform because they're claiming that we're not answering their questions, that we're we're not giving them responses, and that's mostly not true. We're answering all the questions we can answer. And so I think wherever we can diffuse it, that's what we should be doing. And then the people who do take the time to tune in, because we try to get people to tune in, but if I were one of those members who wasn't already acclimated to the way we do things, I would tune in and I would tune out and I'd never watch it again, because it's horrible. It's unprofessional. I think it makes us look bad in the public eye. So if we can get to the point where we're diffusing it and we're not giving a forum for the haters, then we're going to diminish their forum to be able to do their hate and spread their hate, because that's what it's all about. They didn't get their way somewhere along the line, and or they hate us individually or collectively, they hate the tribe, but it's fueled by hate. Instead, we have a lot of good going on in our tribe.
All right, so I don't see any more hands up, and I would appreciate people just to let Michelle do her job. We can tweak how she does it, and we can say, okay, we appreciate your question. Michelle's right there. She's going to work with staff in the back and see if she can get you an answer. If she can't today, she's going to follow up with you in writing and try to get back with you within the next couple days, depending on how complicated your question is. Everyone's getting their question answered, so I'm willing to give that a try. Kim?
Okay, now can we talk about the comp study?
Yes, I'm ready to move on. We okay with that, guys? All right. So let's move on from that. Just to let everyone know, it's 5:15. Ashley, you got to go pick up your kid or anything?
I'm only allowing 15 minutes for this subject now. We should be able to get out of here.
Okay, so we're talking about proprietary information. Should we keep it closed, keep it open?
Well, I'm not going to say any names.
Okay.
It's just that,
It seems like you have questions regarding it that the administration needs to look into to determine whether or not it's factually true, right?
yes,
Okay.
because we were told nobody was going to move backwards, but then we had individuals being moved from exempt to non-exempt, so they lost vacation days, and insurance was reduced.
Okay, so Lana, take note of that. We don't have all the executives in the room who had past comp studies. So there's Jess here, she can follow up with Christine, but there's no one here for the casino. Can you follow up with them to get answers on that?
I asked that question if anyone was going to lose or go backwards, and the answer was no. Otherwise, I may have voted differently, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Legal's already been asked to look at options on that same question too.
Thank
So
you.
it's already getting kicked around.
And if there are issues with it, then we'll figure out recommendations of how to correct it, if that's the will of the board. Bridget?
Should be quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was one that asked for us to talk about this. Hopefully, maybe on Tuesday's agenda, we can talk about it. Because a few of the questions I have is about, in the past several years, people, based on their experience or education, they can negotiate a wage. So are we still going to be allowing that as long as they fit within the grid? Is there a mechanism in place that moves people? Because we've talked about doing evaluations that would be based on performance. It doesn't seem like we have anything clarified where when we had at least the COLA in place, every year they could expect whatever that percentage to be that they were going to get. Now, how are we moving people through the grid so that, I thought I saw something where there was different years, and so every year you'd move up to something. But I don't know if that is actually embedded in here or not, because it doesn't sound like it is. And I guess I'd like to talk to the executives on how some of the information was communicated. I know we saw the memo, but how was it communicated with some staff? Yeah, I guess some of those, and I probably have more that I didn't write down, so if we can maybe get some time, Lana, on the next agenda to talk with executives about it.
Yep. So, Lana, find a spot in the next workshop, invite the executives, let them know what Bridget and Kim's questions are so they can come prepared to answer them, okay?
I think there's more that have questions. Would it be okay to have you guys email me your specific questions so we can send them, compile them all, send them to all of the executives so they can come in prepared to answer them next week?
Any objections to that? So send questions to Lana and she'll tell the board that, not the board, but the executives that they're going to need to be prepared to answer questions regarding them.
Yes,
Okay.
that would be awesome.
Okay. Kim Hampton, then Lana.
Okay, so Lori and I, like I had said earlier, we had sent out an email to possibly do up a resolution to reinstate COLA. Throughout the day, Aaron Schlegelberg, Ryan Mills, and Josh Elliott have been in communication. The resolution that was passed for comp studies does not eliminate the COLA from 2026 moving on, which is exactly what we were told to begin with. But then there was some miscommunication, some questions, but that is the reality of it. Is starting in 2026, there will be still COLA. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Lana?
Yeah, and I'm fine with a workshop, because it's late in the day here, so a workshop whenever we can discuss this again, because our next step was that, and Christine reminded me of this, was that we asked for the wage compression issues to come back too and recommendations, and that's what she was working on. So if we can have that information, that was would be at the end of January. She might not be prepared, but if she is, or anything that she has drafted up, or the casino has drafted up, because that's the next issue, because I spend a lot of time explaining to the team members that this was not a wage compression study, it was a market study, and I think we did a bad job on and we've all recognized that, but I think we have to discuss some other things, and hopefully that information, whatever they have prepared at this point for the wage compression, because that should definitely be our next step.
Okay, Kim Hampton, your hand's still up. Do you have something else, or forget to put it down?
Nope, I have something else.
Okay, go ahead.
I also wanted to, reply to Kim Gravel's questions too. Throughout the course of the day, Rob, Larry, and myself have been communicating with Aaron Schlegelberg. He is going to be getting some information to us on whether we're able to, reinstate the life insurance, the benefits, kind of grandfather in those employees who moved from exempt to non-exempt, what that might look like. And then once he has that information, then he's going to bring it to the rest of the board and us, and then we can go from there and talk about it all together. So I just wanted to also include that.
Correct. And that's why I walked out. I was talking with Ryan when you guys were discussing what do I call it? Anyway, Ryan is going to try to come up with something to long-term this non-exempt so that people will keep their full benefits and hopefully keep their days. So
yes.
People are we talking about? 14.
I think so. All right. So, end of the day, tasks assigned. Let's do this every time. So, you're going to get with staff, let them know the expectations for next Tuesday. Board members, if you have any questions regarding those comp studies, send them to Lana so they can come prepared. If they need to have other people here, send it to Lana so they can come prepared, so it doesn't become an issue where we're meeting week after week after week and we're not sure what we want. So let's get it all down with Lana, what we want from them.
So by 5 o'clock tomorrow, that way I can notice it to them first thing Thursday.
Right. Number 2, Aaron, you're going to look at open meetings and that resolution regarding our emails and come up with some recommendations, right? Okay. Is there any other things that, okay, go ahead, Kim.
Okay, the motion we did for the enrollment bonuses was worded incorrectly, so Bob had sent me a message, so he said, so we can get it on for the next meeting to word it correctly.
Okay, so this will be one of the tasks assigned to Bob. At the next workshop, you're going to present on this and come up with a recommendation of how we can correct that motion language so that department can receive that bonus, right?
Okay, can we do it so that we can act on it that evening?
Are you ready right now?
Tuesday.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Oh, you want to talk about it now?
Is that what you're asking?
No, I was going to say I can bring it next time.
Tuesday, so if he sends it to Lana, she can get it on the agenda.
Okay. Yep, send it on to her. Yep.
Okay.
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 Third deadline's Wednesday.
There's 2 of them. I need to do an amendment for the motion language, which for enrollment for the $2,000 bonus, and I need to do, we left a couple of employees off the wage comp study. I want to amend that agreement too.
The last thing I want to talk about, and it might be considered controversial, but I hope you guys believe that it isn't an attack on anyone. I would like our legal department to find out whether or not there's a conflict with cultural enhancement funds and people on the election commission, strictly because the process right now is asking an individual board member for compensation for a cultural workshop, and half the board is up for re-election every 2 years. So I want to know whether or not there's a conflict, and then regardless of it, just forward it on the election committee, our commission, to make a ruling on it. Aaron.
So I strongly support that, because when I became chair, I looked at the salaries for some members of the election committee. None of them are on the committee now. And some people got 30, 40% raises during election cycles.
Yeah, I just want to know whether or not it's a conflict. The legal department will look at it. It doesn't have to be politicized. Just like any other legal opinion, it will be confidential. So, and then we could forward it on the election commission to figure out how to deal with it.
I got a question.
One quick second. Is anyone opposed to them looking into that? Okay, Aaron?
No objection.
No objections?
That is a task.
Added as tasks assigned? Okay, go ahead, Bridget. I apologize. Who do you want in the room then? Okay, Lana, Ashley, after this, we're done. So Janet, there's not going to be anything after we open up, so have a good evening.
See ya.
I am going to move everybody into the waiting room where they can take themselves off if they want to.
Yeah, we're done.
I had a question.
Yeah, staff can leave aside from Ashley and Lana.
I just had a question.